It is August 20th, 2024. Level Up College Football Podcast in the building from Fans First Sports Network. Sitting back in the studio with my boy Andy P. You know we get out on Level Up. Wherever you get your audio podcast, be it Google, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, make sure you check out the Fans First Sports Network Level Up Podcast. But guess what, fellas? Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We got a special guest today on the podcast. We're going to get to it, but I got to say what's up first to my boy Andy P. Andy, what's crack-a-lackin', bro? What's going on with you, man?
We are officially doing our first show with games coming up this weekend. I'm really excited for it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm just happy to be talking about some college football games, man.
Absolutely. Week 0, not week 1, week 0. And we got a long grind. But, man, before we get to it, we got a special guest today on the podcast. My boy B-Dirt from Running Through the Jungle, diehard Michigan fan for sure, and gets down on the FFSN and one of the know-it-alls crew. What's crack-a-lackin', B-Dirt, man, and welcome to the Level Up College Football Podcast.
Well, yeah, thank you guys for having me, man. I normally get to talk a lot of NFL news and not a whole lot of college, so it's not only is it's special for me to talk college, it's really special to be talking football that matters, and not these preseason games where they don't take anything seriously and they're just trying not to get people hurt. So I'm looking forward to football that matters. I had kind of a breakup and a makeup with college football. So I spent most of my adult life in the restaurant business.
Yeah.
If you know anything about the restaurant business, Saturdays are when you work. So I didn't get to watch college football for 25 years, really. I really got heavily invested in the NFL because I was off Sundays and Mondays. As soon as I took my new job 7 years ago this year, I remembered I fell in love with college football all over again. And now season ticket holder, University of Michigan, go to almost every game, and blessed to have Big G and his brother coming to one of the games this year.
Absolutely. We will be live at the University of Texas versus the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor, Labor Day weekend, ladies and gentlemen. And you might get a podcast out of me and B-Dirt and the crew and the know-it-alls, man, because we're going to be out there talking football, talking sports. And I'm telling you right now, I'm a diehard Buckeye for all those listening to us on audio, but I'm cheering for the Big Ten, and I hope we mop the SEC, University of Texas Longhorns. And I'm saying it live on the podcast and live on wherever you get your audio. So, B-Dirt, Andy, before we get to the show, not everybody, people that are listening and watching us for the first time to having B-Dirt in, he is a big-time Michigan fan. Andy's a Syracuse guy, and y'all know how I get on. I'm a Buckeye guy. So before we get to the games and start talking about the games, I just want to get a realistic conversation going between our three schools, our three loves as far as college football, and what we really expect for this season. So if that's cool with you guys, I'm going to kick it off first to our guest, B-Dirt, man. What is a realistic expectation for the University of Michigan in the 2024 college football season?
Man, I think Texas is obviously the litmus test. Y'all let us know real quick and in a hurry, as you like to say, Big G, what we're going to be all about. We lost our entire offensive line to the NFL.
Facts.
We have one really bona fide starter at guard, and then the rest of it to be determined. There's a lot of faith coming out of the Michigan camp that because of Sharon Moore and what he's been able to do with offensive lines, that we're going to be okay there. But that's still to be seen when you're playing against this year. We have Texas, Oregon, USC, Ohio State. Like, it's a gauntlet, right? I say, I haven't even gotten to talk about the quarterback, who is, I don't know. My guess right now is my guess right now is that Alex Orji is going to start. Tuttle was getting a lot of first team runs, and now the injury flare up has happened again with him. That guy, if it wasn't for bad luck, I don't know if he'd have any,
Facts.
But Alex Orji is freak athlete.
Yeah.
And he's got to be a freak athlete to use that in a sentence with a guy whose last name is Orji.
Facts, big facts. Big facts around here. Yeah.
And, you don't know what you're getting. His passing coming out of Houston in high school was, he's got a cannon for an arm, but you don't know where it's going. So it's gotten a little bit better, but it's not proven yet. So too many unknowns on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, we've got two of the best defensive linemen in the country.
Facts.
We've got the best cornerback in the country.
Big facts.
And we've got some guys that I think are going to surprise some people at linebacker. I feel comfortable. I feel good with where we're at defense. I think we're going to have a very good defense. The problem is if we have turnovers and lack of execution on offense, we're going to put them under fire a lot. So, man, I haven't said this out loud yet, G.
Well, let me hear it.
Less than 3 losses, and I will be a very happy man this year.
Wow. So that's setting the bar sort of low, but
that's where I put the over under at 2.5.
Okay, 2.5. So, Andy, before I get to Syracuse, do you got a question you want to ask this renowned season ticket holder B-Dirt for the University of Michigan concerning their team?
I mean, I think you hit on my biggest concern with Michigan right now is that last year, for all the crap that was thrown the way of the quarterback position, that was probably the most efficient offense in the history of modern college football.
Big facts.
They were every single play, positive EV, every single play through the air, on the ground, the right decision was being made. And you lost a lot of that. You didn't really have explosiveness, but nobody could stop the Michigan offense. And when you can't stop an offense, you're going to win a game, like Alabama found out. And you're going the completely different direction this year if Alex Orji is back there, because this is a guy who I don't know if he can throw the ball accurately. We know he can run, but if you're going to have a running quarterback back there, by definition, you're going to lose some of that efficiency in order to get explosiveness. And so I'm just kind of curious, like, as a Michigan guy who's probably more tuned in right now, like, what are the weapons around him like? And is there a vertical deep threat that can give him the, like, chuck it up and find out down the field? Is the running back room have options for, like, good receiving backs out of the backfield for checkdowns in order to give him that security blanket to maybe prevent some bad plays from happening just because of how good that running back room is?
Yeah, I think Samaj Morgan comes to mind. He had some splash plays last year, mostly in return game. But he also had some bubble play, had some bubble play things going on, screens and whatnot he looked really good, and he's got good speed. Frederick Moore, be a sophomore this year. He was the one that caught the crossing route, number 3, caught the crossing route and outran Alabama. So if you can outrun Alabama's defense, I think that's good. Now, Samaj Morgan is slight, right? Not too tall. They don't really have a jump ball guy that I would like with what you're saying, right? Guy escapes out of the pocket. Do you have somebody you throw that 50-50 ball to? Not anybody I like on the wide receivers, but when it comes to tight end, I think that's where you're going to see the 50-50 balls go. Yeah. I think tight ends were sitting in a really, really good situation there. Colston Loveland getting a lot of press as the best tight end in the country right now. And Marlon Klein is the fastest guy on the team right now at tight end.
Yeah.
So those are where I think the splash plays will come in a deep passing game. I mean, everybody knows Donovan Edwards.
Heisman candidate Donovan Edwards. Let's be clear. Heisman candidate Donovan Edwards.
And he's balked up this year. put on about 15 pounds to take more of that every down back role. Khalil Mullins is going to be the number 2, and he is a converted middle linebacker. Should probably say enough. He looks for contact in the hole. He's one of those guys that's going to get, don't give me the no diddy on that one.
No diddy, no doubt.
He's going to get that, 3 to 8 yard run kind of deal. Not the explosive guy. Jordan Marshall, especially as the year ages later in the year, he's that guy I think you're going to look at. Could be a really good catching the ball out of the backfield and a change of pace back for us. He was the player of the year out of the state of Ohio last year, out of Cincinnati.
Moeller.
Yep.
Cincinnati Moeller High School. Yeah.
So he's looked really good as well.
I like it. I'm going to shift, and I'm going to ask my boy Andy, man, you got a guy that used to don the scarlet and gray over there at quarterback, man. And Syracuse land up there, man. Tell me what's going on, man. Because listen, I'm gonna tell you what I was told today. I was told today from a reliable source that Kyle McCord's dad started beef with a podcast show because they tweeted out the bad play that he had Ohio State versus Michigan. And like as the McCords let it go and moved on, are they focused in on Syracuse going up there in man?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at Syracuse right now, when you're looking at Kyle McCord, they're doing that all access behind the scenes show that's been going down. The first show really made it clear that Kyle McCord was brought in to essentially be part of the Fran Brown expectation setting around the program. That look, what was happening here before wasn't championship caliber. And now we have a coach from Georgia, quarterback from Ohio State, where the stakes are just different. It's just a different game. Y'all don't understand what that means. And so I do think that there is this element of saying, look, we understand that Kyle McCord's not the perfect quarterback, but we brought him in here for a different role. And I think that is the interesting part about the Syracuse expectations this year, where I think a lot of fans, myself included, you're getting really excited. You're getting really hyped about a very soft schedule. You're getting excited about a team that is, on the whole, significantly better at every single position group and deeper at every single position group. However, you're taking a 6-win team and making it better. That means maybe you get a 7th win. Maybe you get an 8th win. Every time you're trying to get another win, it gets exponentially harder and you need that much more talent. So I think that for Syracuse, similar to what B-Dirt was saying, if they can keep it at 5 losses for the year, if they're finishing the year 7-5, but the expectations around the program, the culture of the program fundamentally shifts, where the goal has moved beyond just make a bowl. The goal is to compete and try to make the ACC championship game every year. And the program is acting like that off the field. I think that is going to be a win for this season. And that'll be a win for the Kyle McCord experiment and the Fran Brown year 1 here at Syracuse, mostly just because as I go through the schedule here, there's a lot of games later in the year that we still we're going to talk about Georgia Tech here. That's Syracuse's second game of the year, man. People are saying that Syracuse should be favored in this game. I don't know. There's a lot of unknown in the ACC this year, so it's difficult to say that their schedule is actually soft when you don't know if half of the other teams on the schedule are actually soft or not.
Absolutely. So the hype train has left the building at Columbus, Ohio, and definitely moved to Syracuse, New York. But B-Dirt, you got a question for Andy, bro, about what you think is going, because they're in a legitimate conference, and I'm telling you right now, there's rumblings out there as far as college football that Syracuse could mess around and sneak in the college football playoff. It's because they're saying with their strength of schedule, they don't really have a lot of opponents that are top tier or top notch. Right. So what's your question that you want to ask Andy concerning Syracuse, bro?
So excuse my ignorance here, but in the ACC, do you guys play Florida State and Miami this year?
We do not play. That's the part of the schedule, is that they only play Miami. They do not play Clemson. They don't play Florida State. They do not play. They play NC State. They play Miami. Those are the two top
Miami
ranked.
home or away?
Home.
There it is. That's the reaction that I'm getting from a lot of people. So go ahead, B.
Yeah, you don't want to play Miami early in the year down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you see? Almost the same question, right? Who's your game breakers on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to wideouts or running back position?
So I think this is the interesting part about the Syracuse team, because at the running back position, they've made it abundantly clear that this LeQuint Allen, who was the New Jersey player of the season when he was a senior, he is going to be the workhorse running back. And the backup is going to be a senior transfer that they brought in from Washington, who happens to be the son of the offensive coordinator. So I like when you look at those two guys there, like that's your running back room with LeQuint Allen taking 90. I would say that he's probably going to get 75% of the snaps. And then you've got Will Nixon probably taking 20%. And you've got a freshman, Yassine Willis, who's a true throwback power back. He'll be your goal line, Rhino kind of style back there in goal line situations when you really just need to slam it into the A gap. The wide receiver room is far more interesting because you are looking at a couple of transfers from in Zeed Haynes from the University of Georgia, Justice Ross Simmons from the University of Georgia, and then you've got a freshman in Emmanuel Ross who was pulled out of the state of Tennessee. That's all Fran Brown's overextending the recruiting in Syracuse. Those are three guys that we have never had really at Syracuse. And the nice part about it is that all three of those guys are just going to be asked to complement Oronde Gadsden. Oronde Gadsden's my pick to win tight end of the year this year. Before he had the LaFranc foot surgery last season that knocked him out after the second game of the season. The season before that, he was over 1,000 yards. He had over 60% of the targets in the passing attack. He is going to be the centerpiece of that passing attack. It's just that he is a Travis Kelce type tight end. He is your guy that lines up in the slot, goes over the middle, runs a route 10 yards, takes up space, can maybe get some run after the catch, but he's not going to really break the game open. So one of those three speedy guys needs to figure out, how can I go onto the outsides? How can I extend the coverage, create more soft spots for Gadsden in the middle? And then when defenses start creeping up on him, how can I make sure that I'm open down the field and I can be that explosive player? So one of those three guys is going to step up in Fran Brown's first recruiting class. Gadsden's going to get the majority of the targets, and then LeQuint Allen is going to get the majority of the carries.
I think anytime you poach, you're poaching wide receivers from Georgia, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. They're trying to create, I think, an SEC culture and an ACC town or traditional ACC Big East town in Syracuse, New York. Hey, so listen, y'all. We're going to take a pause for the cause, quick commercial break. We're going to spend, for some minutes because I know there's a lot of furniture moving around because we got B-Dirt from the University of Michigan on the show to talk about the Buckeyes, and then we're going to get to the schedule for sure. If you're listening to us on audio, wherever you get your audio podcast, we'll be right back with the Level Up College Football Podcast with Andy P., B-Dirt special guest, and Big G. We'll be back in a second. And we're back with the Level Up College Football Podcast Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. Wherever you get your audio podcast, be it for Fans First Sports Network, make sure you check out the Level Up College Football Podcast. Hey, I want to give a shout out first before we get into questions. Everybody in the live chat joining us on YouTube. Thank you, Afton, Rob Lightfoot, Andrew Lightbar, Jay Steed, and the crew that normally gets down with us. What's crack-a-lacking, you guys? Thanks for rocking live chat this week on Fans First Sports Network. All right, fellas, I got to pause and take a little step back and say this because I know shots are coming, and I'm actually ducking and looking to try to get out the way. Ohio State, everybody knows this team is beyond believable. The money that they spent in the transfer portal to get the players that they got, the schedule that they have, they're picked right now to go to the national championship, play in the national championship, and possibly win the national championship. So because of that, I know there's all kind of questions, all kind of things out there. So I'm going to take the step back. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to fire away at me and ask some real questions concerning Ohio State, because there's a lot riding on this season. And I'm telling you right now, Coach Day, you might be cooked. You mess this up, it might be adios muchachos and cooked like a rump roast. So I'm gonna let the fellas go. Andy, you ask first.
Yeah, I was
What
gonna
do you
say,
got to ask about Ohio State, bro?
I got one question, and I'm gonna let you and B Dirt just fight this one out here, because I am like, you've heard me. I've been talking on the show. I think Ohio State the second best team in the country. The reason they're not the first best team in the country, man. What's up with this offensive line? Is this offensive line good enough? Because you go out and you get a quarterback like Will Howard, who's really solid, but he's not a pure pocket passer. He's a leg guy. And that to me kind of signaled saying, like, look, I don't know about this offensive line. I need a guy who can protect himself, who can move the pocket, who we can run a more mobile passing attack out of, because I don't necessarily trust my offensive line to go toe-to-toe with the best defensive fronts in the country. So, Big G, I'm just like, convince me that the Ohio State offensive line is good enough to compete with the other defensive fronts in the playoff conversation.
Great question. The Ohio State starting five offensive line have been named and identified. So there's no more question. There's no more second guess about who's playing where and what. All right. We're going to start with Justin Simmons, who's the second year at Ohio State, transfer from San Diego State University at left tackle. He's about 6'6", 310, 315 pounds. Donovan Jackson is a true All-American offensive guard, probably first or second team All-American. He's 6'4", 320, 330 pounds. Seth McLaughlin, the center transfer from the University of Alabama, will start. He's about 6'3", 6'4", 310, 315 pounds. At right guard is Tegra Latola, offensive tackles, that converted to offensive guard at 6'6", 330 pounds. And at right tackle, the Iron Buckeye earner for the offensive line this year for Ohio State, but stated by Mick Mariani, the strength and conditioning coach, to be the number one guy who earned it this offseason, is Josh Pryor at 6'6", 320 pounds. So they have a line that if there's a weakness, maybe not really knowing what's going on with Seth and his ability to snap the ball. We saw that against Michigan. But I think there's a major level up going on for the Ohio State offensive line this year. So to answer your question, Andy, I think they got what they need to protect Will. And it doesn't hurt because you got Travion Henderson and Quinshon Jenkins, who are probably the best 1-2 back, similar to what Michigan had last year with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards in the country. And so, they're checking each other out. Quinshon might have been the best back in the country last year. So you give Quinshon and Trey that position behind that line, we got something special going on in Ohio State.
Well, and I don't even think you've touched on the best position group on your offense.
Yeah, which is that WR. WR. Don't get me started. My only concern has been where Ohio State is the tight end position. I'm just be honest, because that is an extension of the offensive line. Gee Scott, the McLaughlin kid that transferred from Ohio University, or is the big boy Jelani Thurman out of Georgia, who's supposed to be the next Mount Washington, finally got it together. He's a sophomore and ready to ride. Because if he's ready to go at 6'5", 285, and he runs a 4.55 40-yard dash, I'm not worried about what's going on anywhere concerning his blocking assignments. But games like Iowa and Oregon will definitely show if our offensive line has what they need before we play the University of Michigan this year.
Yeah, and you the past couple of years have had really steady play at tight end. Like I think Cade Stover was just one of the more consistent guys over the past couple of years in college football. He was able to block, he was able to catch. He can,
absolutely.
He wasn't setting the world on fire, but he was very good.
Absolutely.
So,
all right, B.
What about defensive backfield?
So I'm going to say this. I believe in totality, Mr. Johnson, number 2 up in Michigan, is the best DB in the country. I believe that him and Travis Hunter are top 5 NFL draft picks. But I will say, from a defensive backfield, as far as a unit, we got the number one unit in the country. With
Really?
with the transfer addition of Caleb Downs, who was a freshman All-American and second team All-American as a freshman, coming into play safety. Jordan Hancock and Lathan Ransom returning from the injury to be able to solidify those positions at safety. And then David Espinosa and Denzel Burke, who will be an All-American and first-round draft pick. Core five defensive backs. Oh, we got it. And we have depth behind that. So I think from a unit standpoint, we have the best defensive backfield unit in the entire country, and we play three safeties. Our safeties are so good that Sonny Styles has transitioned from a safety to a linebacker. Sonny Styles will start outside linebacker this year for Ohio State, and he's up to 242 pounds. That's all because Caleb Downs has proven that he might be the best safety to play in college football since Sean Taylor played at the University of Miami. And that's saying a whole lot. But this kid is the real deal and the truth. So I'm like, okay, we got a defensive backfield as well. So, the question is, how much will you see the traditional two safeties, two corners, and how much will you see the three safety look? I think you'll see it a lot because we have the flexibility of a guy like Jordan Hancock to play a slot corner position, which when teams line up in 11 personnel, we have the ability to shut them down.
So what position group would you look at and say you have question marks, or if this position group exceeds expectation, that's the key to us winning the championship?
Linebacker. We lost two starting linebackers, Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg, who were all Big Ten, All-American selections. Both guys now playing in the NFL.
Steel Chambers also got OLI for best names for me last year in college football, just FYI.
big facts. So now this year, we have Cade and we have Stover that's earned the block O at middle linebacker, who's back to play. You add Sonny Styles to play outside of him. You bring in C.J. Hicks, who's been this all-world five-star that we're waiting for blossom at linebacker. And then you go along that with Dylan Reese, man, who has earned the coach's respect and moved from the third team to the second team to getting snaps at inside linebacker. If this position is able to play at B status, we got something special brewing in Ohio State. Because I think that's the big question mark at Ohio State. Because once teams watch film and they figure out what you're good at and what's strong at, because for the first time in a long time, we have super athletes playing linebacker. We haven't had linebackers like this since Ryan Shazier and Raekwon McCollum. But the issue is, do they put it down on the field to show that they can be a super athlete versus being a stiff linebacker like Tommy Eichenberg?
Last question for me, and probably the most pressing one. Do you think Chip Kelly can keep Ryan Day from peeing down his leg this time?
I absolutely believe it. I think that from what I know on my feet on the ground and inside sources that I have with the Ohio State University, I think that Chip Kelly is in demand or in control of the Ohio State offense. And I think Ryan Day doesn't have an input. I think there's some conversation concerning the quarterback, which they've already named Will Howard the starter, by the way. And Will Howard's in the best shape of his life. He's 6'4", 238 pounds. He was clocked at 22.75 MPHs in the gauntlet this week at 238 pounds. That's going to be a load coming downhill real fast. So I think that with Kelly in control of the offense, I think they're going to be more run heavy than they've ever been before, which in turn takes a page out of the Michigan playbook, because when things get tough, you rely on the run. And I think that that's what Ryan Day has done traditionally, has leaned on the pass. I mean, look who he had playing quarterback, so I see why, with Justin Fields and C.J. Stroud. But now he's going to lean on the running game, and I think that's going to be the key to success this year for the Buckeyes.
So I'm gonna throw out a question here to both of you that I think is just prime red meat here. Big G, which of these outcomes would you rather have? Ohio State beats Michigan to break the streak, wins the game, but chokes in their first round of the playoff. Or they lose to Michigan, still get a top 4 seed in the playoff because that's their only loss in the season, and they win the Big Ten, and they go on to win the national championship?
Man, that is one of the hardest questions I've ever been asked.
Big
anytime
G.
Podcasting anywhere.
Big G, that's the easiest question of all time.
So
ask me the question.
Oh, I know what you're going to say, because the rivalry means everything.
No,
right?
You're wrong.
You want the natty?
I know that you're going to be in the tournament, so that means I got a 50-50 chance that I get to beat you in the tournament after you beat us in the regular season.
Right.
I'll take it.
It's right. And how many
I'll take the
times?
natty.
Exactly. How many times in college football season do we see teams with matchups that can play each other 2 and 3 times a year? So I'm going to answer the question based on what I understand. I have pretty much been told that Coach Day is on the big time hot seat if he drops the game against Michigan. They legitimately will look at it. Would they fire him? I don't know. But that's a 50-50 throw up. So the issue is, let's beat Michigan and then go take care of business. Okay? So I would prefer the Michigan win, but I would love to have the natty. The issue with the natty is if we drop to Michigan, Coach Day might not be the coach. That might be Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly might be the head coach, but if that happens. And I could see a scenario when that happened and occurred, because Chip Kelly is the interim coach in waiting in case something happens. Right? That's why he's there. So I want the win against Michigan, and then we'll see what happens. But I would love to get the natty. But I think that would cost me Ryan Day as a head coach.
Yeah, I think Rob Lightfoot has it in the chat, where I think that it's going to be really hard to go undefeated. I think that there's 2 teams that could do it in Georgia and Ohio State. The problem is that those schedules are just a gauntlet.
Facts.
And I think that a 1-loss Big Ten champion can still get the number 1 overall seed. A 1-loss SEC team can get the number 1 seed. But like you're saying, like this new format's going to be real interesting with multiple matchups, because again, like there's a reality. I'm not saying this would happen, but let's just say that Michigan figures everything out. Their schedule's not that bad. They've got some tough games like everybody in the conference. They could go undefeated leading into the game. Ohio State could go undefeated leading into the game. Loser of that game obviously gets the L. They meet again in the Big Ten championship. Now that we got rid of the divisional format, it'll just be the team with the best 2 records.
Big facts.
And then you're telling me that a playoff committee is not going to take wouldn't take a 1 or 2 loss Big Ten team whose only loss is to one of Ohio State or Michigan? Like, no. Like, in that scenario, both Ohio State and Michigan are going to the playoff, and they're probably facing each other 3 times in a season, which has never happened before.
Right.
Wild.
Right. and that's what I'm saying. That scenario. So we got to take one at a time. Let's beat Michigan the first time we play them, and then we'll worry about everything else. Because I can see a scenario where Michigan does win out as well. I think
we have a really rough schedule, like I said, but the one onus that we have, Texas, USC, and Oregon all at home.
Facts.
So those West Coast teams have to travel for the first time across the country to play.
Facts.
That's the only positive in that tough schedule.
Facts. All right, fellas, I got one more question before we go to our second break. What is the number one thing you're looking at or looking towards in this college football season? B-Dirt, you're our guest, bro. We're right with you, man. What's the number one thing you're looking forward to, bro?
Hold on. Let me see if I can't get to it. I can't get to it. Man, tailgating.
Wow.
Tailgating.
Wow. Yeah, tailgating.
We got a group called Hailgate. Shout out to my people out there, and we're like family, man. And I get to show that off to some people this year. I got a couple people from work. They're going to be coming to the Michigan State game. I got Big G and Ma coming to the Texas game. So I get to show my fam, my football fam. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Man, absolutely. Andy, what's the thing you looking forward to, bro?
I mean, B-Dirt kind of stole my thunder. I'm doing a fun college football trip this year with a old coworker of mine who lives up in Syracuse. We're going to Vegas to go see Syracuse UNLV, and then do A little bit of Vegas college football Saturday, the day, because that game's a Friday night. So then we have all Saturday in Vegas to watch college sports. But I do think that, like, along those lines, like, looking at the schedule this year, man, every single Saturday from noon until 9 p.m., there's going to be at least one marquee helmet game on in every time slot. With just the way the conference realignment works, just the way that everything worked out, there is not going to be a single Saturday where we're just sitting around waiting for one game to happen, which to me is like, that's the best part about a college football Saturday is like my team plays at 7. I still want to start watching at noon all the way through and get excited for the game, whether it's at a tailgate or whether it's at home or whether it's out at a bar somewhere. Like, I'm just excited that kind of like the NFL has kind of taken over all day Sundays. If you're a college football fan, you can do that on Saturdays now. And I think that is great for fans. Feel bad for my friends who are working behind the bars and now have to manage all the TVs and all the different streaming. Like, that's not going to be fun for y'all. But for me, I'm excited as a fan for my Saturdays to be wall-to-wall fun now.
So, Andy, if you're going to be out there for a college football weekend and a pro football, possibly whatever, I got a couple suggestions for you. If you need to be indoors, the sports book at Caesar's Palace, fantastic sports book there. And if it's nice enough to be outdoors, you got to go to the Circus Stadium watch. You can sit out on the pool and bet, and they have all the gaming out there and everything. It's fantastic.
Man, I'm very excited.
So listen, the thing I'm looking forward to the most in this season is the playoff. Yeah. I think that this is long overdue. I think we should have had expansion 3 seasons ago. That it is about time that they give teams to settle the thing on the field. Now, is it perfect? Nah. Will it get there when we get closer to 16 and we develop these super conferences? Yeah. So this is going to be the first time, in my opinion, the champion was really on the field, because we've had questions every year about who should have got in and who shouldn't have. Now, I'm not dogging any champion. I think that every champion won it, and it was well-deserved. But this year, ain't no excuses, bro. If you make the 12, do what you got to do to get that chip. And so that's why I'm looking forward to and I've said this, and I'm going to keep saying it. Whoever wins the chip, to me, is the greatest team. Because you had to do something that nobody else has ever done.
I went sentimental on it, and I'm sitting over here thinking to myself, I left out. I'm going to Seattle this year to watch the Washington game, and I'm going to get to see Tim out there, Tim Lyons, our boy running through the jungle. I'm going through all this stuff, and you're just like, no. He's the most deserved champion. Crown the most deserved champion.
Big G's about keeping that on the field, man.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I'm saying it like you're going to settle this on the field, man, and that's long overdue. You guys know there's been many a times, there's many a teams that's been left out. Michigan's been left out of the playoffs. Ohio State has been left out of the playoffs. Penn State has been left out of the playoffs. I could run down the list. Georgia's been left out of the playoffs. Bama's been left out of the playoffs. And you look back and you're like, man, this team could have popped that other team. So I think this year there's not going to be no question, no excuses, nothing about nothing. You got to win it on the field, and you deserve it. That's my statement. All right, fellas, we're going to take another quick commercial break, our last pause for the cause. If you're listening to us on audio, wherever you get your audio podcast, check out the Level Up College Football Podcast on Fans First Sports Network. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we're just going to take a break, and we'll be right back with the Level Up College Football Podcast on Fans First Sports Network. And we're back with the Level Up College Football Podcast. Once again, thank you guys for rocking with us. I see some other people that jumped in. Rob Lightfoot, Mr. Woody C, man. Thank you guys for rocking with the rest of the crew over there in chat land, man. We got a lot going on this today. But fellas, it's week 0. We are here. It is officially college football season. Who would ever thought we'd have week 0? But we got a slate of 4 games. I think a couple of them are sort of mean something sort of early. But we're going to get to the slate. We're going to talk about it. Andy, you know how we do it on Level Up. I'm going to kick the slate to you. Go from there and beat her. We're going to jump you in here in a second. Let's go, Andy, with the slate for week 0 on college football.
Yeah, we got a few different games here. There's one P4 versus P4 game, and then the rest are FCS bye games, but I think that there's two of these games that I'm very interested in. But the first kickoff, the season kicks off Saturday, August 24th. We've got Florida State, Georgia Tech noon on ESPN. And then on Thursday, we're going to start with the other FCS bye games. We're looking at Western Carolina versus NC. Oh, sorry, this is just the top 25 games. Let me get to all the games, but yes, sorry, hold on.
Is the Florida State game the Dubliner game?
That is the Dubliner
Yes.
game. No Notre Dame this year, which I think is really interesting. Going to Dublin. Here we go. And then 4 p.m. we have Montana State versus New Mexico, FS1. 8 p.m. we've got SMU going to Nevada. And then at midnight on Saturday, we have Delaware State playing Hawaii. However, just a note here, it came out today, some breaking news here. Delaware State missed their flight out of JFK.
What?
Turns out there was an issue with New York City traffic and their bus, so they missed their flight to Hawaii, which, as you might expect, there's not a whole lot of flights running direct for an entire football team and athletic staff to fit, running from New York to Hawaii. Unclear as to how this game is going to happen at this point. Last statement from the athletic director of Delaware State was that they are committed to playing this game on Saturday. But y'all, I don't think Delaware State has private jet money because that might be the only way that they can get the whole team out to Hawaii right now. So anyways, those are our week 0 games here.
Who's
4
the
games
most
on the
notable alumni from Delaware State? Didn't Flacco go there?
Joe Flacco.
No, he went to Delaware, which is a different program than Delaware State.
I know who went there. Ryan Day and Chip Kelly.
What?
Oh my goodness!
I think so. I'm pretty sure. Let me triple check. Day and Chip Kelly, I think, went there.
That Ohio State got PJ money. Send it to him.
No bread for you guys. No bread for you guys. No bread. All right, so Andy, you ran a slate. I think that Florida State Georgia Tech game means a lot early. And I think the winner of that game could possibly win the ACC. Andy, give me a little rundown about that. And B-Dirt, I'm going to jump to you, bro.
Yeah, I think ACC guy here, I think it's really interesting that Florida State opted to take this kind of challenge and this kind of game early. Georgia State's a team that I don't have a great read on right now. They're kind of squirrely. If you look at, Bill C's SP Plus, which is a ESPN ranking that is supposed to be predictive. It takes into a defense, offense, special teams, and just kind of looks at like how effective is the team at actually like doing positive things. Georgia Tech's the 58th ranked team. Florida State's 12. So it's not really an even game, but I think that there's a little bit more level setting between the two sides just because Georgia Tech was so well coached last year and they were able to retain a lot more talent from the portal than I thought they were. They still have King at quarterback. They were able to keep their big impact wide receiver. And I still have some questions about the Florida State offense. Like last year, even with Jordan Travis and Keon Coleman, that offense was pretty much if Keon Coleman isn't doing anything, well, you can't really do anything here. And you've got DJU as a quarterback who, as much as I think that he's talented, we know what he's not. And he's not a guy who can necessarily break a game open for you. Like we saw that with Oregon State. He's not a guy who's really accurate on the deep balls. He really likes to run. Like he's a great quarterback at running a mesh pocket passing attack game. That's not what Florida State was doing last year. And this feels like this is a team that's going through a major adjustment on the fly. And so then like you were saying, B-Dirt, to go to Ireland and to play a conference opponent who's way more motivated than you are for this game, like it just feels very trap gamey, especially that it's taken place in week 0 so early into the camp season for both of these teams.
I like it.
Yeah, I get like the same thing, right? Malik Benson transferring over there is a very interesting wide receiver. So, it almost looks like they built everything kind of explosive play on the outside,
Mm.
and then got a quarterback that wants to throw things over the middle and the inside. Like I get what you're saying there, Andy, and it is a little confusing. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Is that more of the play style of where he was at Oregon State? And does he have better abilities at that? Well, to be continued, I guess. I'm interested to see, Georgia Tech historically good run game, and I'm looking to see if they can get back to that. And that running against the Florida State, what does that Florida State defense look like up front? Because I think that's going to show me a lot as far as a window into what the ACC is going to look like. Because I think it could be a 2-horse race this year where I love calling him DJ Ukulele, but if he takes him, if he takes Florida State, does Miami then, is it a runaway with those two? Because if not, I mean, you got NC State, like you said, Syracuse and some other Georgia Tech that could get in the mix and muddy up the waters, and it could be anybody's game at that point. So I think this will be the first litmus test to see if there is a separation or not with Florida State. So I'm looking forward to this game more so than just my DraftKings account getting the cobwebs dusted off of it.
Yeah.
Facts.
I do think that this is a really interesting kind of thing on the when it comes to the defense, because SP Plus thinks the offense is top 25, which is fine, but not what you expect out of Florida State. SP Plus has Florida State's defense ranked number 10, and a lot of that is coming from last year's defense that was 14th best at preventing explosive plays and top 20 overall in most other categories. But when you look at the way that Florida State did that, they had a beast on the edge in Verse, who obviously is no longer there.
Facts.
And they're relying on a transfer from Georgia, Marvin Jones Jr., to really basically be a plug-and-play replacement. And obviously, Florida State has leveraged the transfer portal really well. But, again, like we just kind of talked about the Georgia thing, like Georgia let a lot of guys go to Syracuse because they weren't going to play at Georgia. They are going to play at Syracuse. They're young. They've got an opportunity to grow. That's not necessarily the case here with Marvin Jones Jr. And so I just always worry about, like, again, you don't really leave Georgia if you're good enough to play at Georgia. And I just don't know if Florida State's going to be able to employ that same level of defensive success. And so now if the defense isn't as good as it was last year, you're looking at a top 25 team, not a top 10 team, not a top 5 team. And a top 25 team playing a neutral site game in week 0 is like prime upset bait. And that to me is like, I think the weakness of this Florida State team right now.
So do you think that the ACC is going to be wide open this year? I didn't even mention Clemson, and I think part of the reason why is, and part of the reason why the ACC is opened up over the past couple of years is with the addition of NIL and transfer portal, and Dabo Swinney just refusing to get in the pool. I'm not playing with those folks.
Yeah,
it's been kind of the Wild West over there, and it's open to anybody could jump up and have a good season and take it every year now.
Yeah, I think the problem with the ACC, it's wide open in the sense that I think that there are 5 teams that could viably win the conference. Like Florida State is probably your favorite. Miami is the most talented program, but there's a million questions about that coaching staff that are going to prevent me from ever saying that they're the favorite. So
big facts.
Gotta wait and see there. Talked about Clemson's issues. And then you've got 2 dark horse teams that are really liked by a lot of metrics. But we just, again, like they've got long histories here. Like NC State, David Doran is a fantastic talent recruiter. And yet he seems very capped at 9 wins every year. Finds a way to lose 3 games on the schedule every single season. And then you're looking at SMU, who we'll talk about in a little bit here, who is very talented, spent a ton of money to like upgrade the roster, upgrade the facilities as well. But teams that move up from not Power 5 to the Power 5 typically just struggle with the week in and week out physicality and challenges that come with it.
Facts.
So even though the roster looks so good on paper, it's just a matter of like historically a team like SMU should not succeed. But I think that you have those 5 schools all with a very viable path to the ACC title game. And once you're in the title game, it's a coin flip at that point.
Yep.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head with Cristobal too. Like, great recruiter. I mean, he always has really good athletes and big, powerful linemen and stuff. But I mean, he probably lost the single worst loss I've ever seen in college football history last year, and that's coming from a guy who watched Jim Harbaugh lose to Michigan State in 10 seconds on a punt block.
That's big facts, bro.
And Cristobal was worse.
Right.
Hey, so I got a hot take for you. I think if Mario Cristobal loses week 1 against Georgia Tech, he's on the hot seat. And now you can circle the wagons around the whole state of Florida. Florida and Florida State's coach will be on the hot seat if Florida's coach, I think, is cooked anyway. But I think Florida State's coach, with a loss to Georgia Tech week 1 in Dublin, he's on the hot seat. He's on the side because the expectation is for Florida State to win the ACC. Period.
You think
Period.
Coach Norvell gets the can?
Yeah.
I mean,
he's
Florida State's fired coaches for a lot less. And I will say this about Norvell and Florida State. One of the things that we haven't talked about here in this entire conversation, because I'm the analytics guy, I don't like to feed into this stuff, but here's the thing. Florida State's season last year is probably one of the most heartbreaking momentum losses to a season that I've ever seen. They, like you saw from the video, how hard that entire coaching staff and team was hit by not making the playoff. And then we saw how limp that team came out in their bowl game against a Georgia team that had a very similar situation in the loss to Alabama in the title game. And Georgia came out motivated and Florida State came out ready to lose. I don't know what the offseason messaging is there, but like he has got, like, if you lose to Georgia State or Georgia Tech, even if this game is close against Georgia Tech, that momentum, that dark cloud is hanging over the program. And if you carry that into this year, it's not going away. Florida State will drop games that they shouldn't lose. And now you're looking at this program like being in a downward spiral.
Well, and I had a feeling like Norvell was just always going to be on the hot seat as long as Deion Sanders only had a year or 2 left in his contract. Who knows with all the stuff floating around that now? I don't know, but I mean, I kind of the writing on the wall to me was Norvell will be there until Deion's free.
The facts, that's big facts. All right, so I just want to talk a little bit about SMU, man, because there's a lot of rumblings that SMU is a legit dark horse contender for the ACC, man. They got a lot of talent, a lot of speed. They got one heck of a quarterback down there. If you guys don't know the kid's name, it's Preston Stone. They gave the kid a nickname last year, and he was throwing the ball all over the place, almost 4,000 yards passing. Andy, is SMU ready to step up? Are they ready to challenge for that dang on ACC, bro?
I mean, I'm telling you right now, like Nevada is probably one of the worst teams in the entire country. So SMU is about to put up a show in their first game as an official SEC school or ACC school. They are going to they're probably going to win this game 49-0 by the end of the third quarter. Like this is going to be a blowout game. And I think when you look, I'm pulling up the SMU schedule right now. Like Nevada, one of the worst teams in all of football. They play Houston Christian, which is, an FCS bye game. They play BYU, who's, an average Big 12 team. They get a bye week, and then they play that TCU rivalry game. And they have a 3-week stretch that will decide their season. TCU, Florida State at Louisville. But the fact that they get Florida State at home, man, like we were just talking about it. Florida State, if they cannot shake the bad vibes from last year, SMU could upset Florida State. And I think that because we are, again, my biggest question with SMU is the physicality. They've done a great job leveraging the transfer portal to go out. And typically, like what we saw with UCF and BYU, they went out into the transfer portal and they got guys who were moving up. So essentially, like, hey, we're going to go after guys that were at FCS schools or at other Group of 5 schools that could have gone to a Power 5 school. But now that we're in the Power 5, we're getting them and moving up. SMU went the other way and said, let me get guys who couldn't cut it at one of these Power 4 schools, and we're going to bring them and give them an opportunity to play at SMU. And what I think helps with that is that these are guys who are used to a Power 4 weight regimen. They're used to that physicality. They were on rosters before. I think it'll be mitigated a bit. But again, like historically, we're just talking about like this has never been successful before. No team has ever moved up from the Group of 5 into the Power 5 and had a championship caliber season. So if SMU does do this, I don't think it just means that like, oh, wow, good for SMU, dark horse in this year's ACC. I think it means SMU is a dark horse to be that next Clemson dynasty program in the ACC.
Ooh.
And that to me is like fascinating and weird considering how badly Clemson and FSU went out of this conference.
Big fact.
You know, if anybody's going to make that leap that quick like that and go to a Power 5 conference, it's going to be a team who has been practicing this NIL since 1979. Bro, SMU got this down, son.
Big facts.
They threw a party. They opened champagne the moment that got put into place. We're like, we're back, boys. Get the oil money. Back it on up.
that is 150% facts. Those that's listening that don't know, SMU is tied to the death penalty in college football, and they had the Pony Express back with Craig James and Eric Dickerson and all the rest of the guys that they were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to play college football back then. Can you imagine now, like you said, since 1979, now we are at a place where guys can get paid millions of dollars on an NIL deal.
If I'm running the collective at SMU, if you get named a starter for week 1, you get a Trans Am.
Facts. Pony
Hand
Express,
them out, baby. I'll be standing outside the locker room handing out keys. That's yours, and that's yours. It'd be great.
You get a car. You get a car. You get a car. All the way across the board, man.
That's right.
But I do believe, and Andy, I believe it in totality. SMU has the potential to become a super team real fast because of things like B. Dirks mentioned, and we're playing around with it. But it's true. There's a lot of Texas oil money that's floating around. And by it being in a major city like Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, oh my God, you can imagine the sponsorship that those guys can get from a collective group for an NIL deal that they can literally pay for play at SMU University.
But you look at the last couple of years, they've got the speed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They've got it. It's the big uglies. When the big uglies get there, that's when you can compete. Colorado's proven that. When you don't have the big uglies, you can't compete with the big boys. You got to have them.
Big facts. All right, so fellas, late game Hawaii, just quick answer. You staying up to watch it? I know I am because it's college football. So I'm watching Hawaii late.
I'll stay up and watch it if they fly out of JFK. I honestly might go over JFK right now, go say hi to the Delaware State guys. They seem like they're having a bad day. They probably could use some Shake Shack or something right now.
Oh my God, beat Earth.
So 2 things. One, if Delaware State goes through whatever it takes to get there, I feel like I owe it to them to watch it. But in all actuality, the late night Hawaii games are one of those things that let me know I'm alive as a gambler. Also, occasionally get me crying in the shower. You know what I mean? Like it's, might have some problems. Got to scrub that off of me a little bit.
Yeah. Big facts.
Also, speaking of gambling things real quick, we're going to talk about this next week in the week 1 preview, but we've got the FCS teams playing the FBS teams this week. Yeah. First time in my life I've ever seen this. Montana State, the number 4 ranked FCS school in the country, is playing New Mexico, who is an FBS team, a bad FBS team, but they're an FBS team. Montana State is favored by 11.5 points on FanDuel Sportsbook right now. This is the first time I've ever seen an FCS team favored over an FBS team. I feel like we've come such a long way since the Appalachian State, Michigan experience that now you're just never going to sneak up on anybody anymore, man. Never going to sneak up on anybody anymore.
Andy, I was at that damn game.
A low light for the University of Michigan program.
So man.
I understand. All right,
I was
fellas.
also at the game when they lost to Toledo.
Wow. B-Dirt, you need to stay as far away from Ann Arbor, Michigan as what it sounds
I was at
like.
every game last year at home.
Yeah, and they got
wrong.
victories.
You wrong.
Got victories. Facts. All right, so fellas, we got one last topic before we get off the show. We're going to talk a little bit about week 1 preview. Andy, what's the number 1 game you're looking forward to in week 1? Because we're week 0 Thursday, but week 1 kicks off Thursday, August 29th. What is the number 1 game you're looking forward to for week 1?
North Dakota State versus Colorado, man. I've been on the train since game 1. I think North Dakota State's going to beat Colorado. I think if that happens, the Colorado and Dion narratives are going to be insane. I want that. Give me the chaos. Give me it all. North Dakota State versus Colorado is like I am sitting down at the bar, front and center, watching that game.
Oh, B-Dirt, number 1 game you're looking forward to week 1 in college football?
Well, I mean, obviously, I would say Michigan, Fresno State, but you know, I'm gonna leave you one. I'm gonna leave you one, Big G. That's pretty obvious because for those of you who don't know, I live in Pittsburgh, PA. I'm a transplant, so I'm gonna be tuned in to watching the Backyard Brawl at noon.
Oh,
we got the boys from Penn State going down to West Virginia. 12 o'clock game, so that one should be interesting.
Yeah, big facts. I think that's going to set up a lot of things moving forward. Listen, it's obvious. Clemson, Georgia, week 1, Saturday at 12 p.m. on ABC has got to be the number 1 must watch because I think that one team will be eliminated from college football playoff contention when that game is over with. I think that either Georgia is going to beat the brake shoes off of Clemson or Clemson is going to show the world we're back.
And the truth is, Big G likes to get in his smoker's robe and lay there and listen to Kirk Herbstreit's voice. It's like a smoothing thing for him. He just click.
Wait, he is a Buckeye alum. He is a Buckeye alum, so he is a Buckeye alum. But in all reality, there's another game that I think is very pivotal to the college football playoff as well. Notre Dame versus Texas A&M. I think that week 1 opponent will set up because if Texas A&M is really what people think that they are, hey, Texas A&M saying, hey, don't forget about us just because Texas came to the SEC. But I think they lost entirely too much from the portal, and I think the Leonard kid transferring from Duke is going to do an outstanding job at Notre Dame University this season.
So you're not afraid of the Zips is what you're saying?
Nah.
Nah. You got to give an OLI to that Sunday night game, man.
The Sunday night. Who is it? Tell me.
LSU USC Sunday night in Baton Rouge.
I don't believe in Riley Leonard Lincoln Riley and the quarterback position at USC enough to say that they can go down and play LSU and beat them.
Oh no, it's at Allegiant Stadium.
Yeah, it's in Vegas for some reason, but it'll be an LSU home game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I still got LSU.
Close.
I still got LSU. No matter what. Yeah. All right, fellas, we're to the end of the show. We're to the end of Level Up. B-Dirt, you're our guest, man. Thank you for coming on. Thank all you guys for rocking with us in the live chat. For sure, we had some great comments this evening. B-Dirt, tell the people where they can find you. Give a shout out, and let's go with all the podcasts that you are tied to on Fans First Sports Network.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It was a pleasure. Had a good time. Love talking college football. Don't get to do it often enough. Tomorrow night, running through the jungle, Cincinnati Bengals going through Cincinnati Bengals AFC North, AFC football, pro football in general, with Tim Lyons, my boy Justin Lacey. Then on Friday, the homies. We'll always be in there messing with each other, talking some trash. Homies overtime, where we get a little bit off of, I want to say off of football subjects, sometimes off of sports in general. Sometimes it can get a little wild in the overtime section. And then as always, on Sundays, you can check me out in the comments on the Know-It-Alls.
Big facts.
I'm not on the show, but I'm normally in those comments stirring things up.
Absolutely.
Hey, and Pay got something coming.
Yeah, I figure it.
Pay got something coming.
Big facts. Andy P, tell the people that's listening to us where they can catch you, bro. What's going on with you?
Yeah, catch Disloyal Idiots on Fans First Sports Network, Syracuse Show, our podcast. We usually live stream Sundays at 8. We're trying to get some college football guests on the show to talk about all the hype that's around the Cuse program. That'll be kicking off soon. And you can also check me out on Substack at AC Pregler over there. I'll have a big written Syracuse preview. I'll be doing updates as the season goes along. Try to dabble in some other gambling advice as well in there, just because that's something that I want to dip my toe into a little bit more this season. So we're gonna, obviously in the right company with B Dirt here. So we're gonna have a good time, and I'm looking forward to college football coming back all hours of the day. Week 1's the best because you get it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday before the NFL comes in and takes over some of those other days.
Absolutely.
So, I will say this, Andy. You guys, your podcast always kills it. And even when Syracuse isn't good at playing football, they're always good at talking football. Their broadcast school's fantastic. One of the local guys here in Pittsburgh, Andrew Filippone, is my favorite guy here. He's a Syracuse guy. So
love Shawnee.
Absolutely. Well, man, of course, you guys know you can catch me every week with Andy P on the Level Up College Football Podcast. We broadcast normally on Mondays. This week was a special edition because we had a special guest on Tuesday. Make sure you swing back tomorrow night on Fans First Sports Network, Steel Curtain Network, to check me, Tate Boy Fresh, and our boy Shannon White as we get on that Pump Your Brakes podcast. As before mentioned, the Homies and Homies Overtime that's on Fridays, and the Know-It-Alls podcast where me, Mod, Tate Boy Fresh, and any one of the Know-It-Alls crew can show up at any time and get some furniture moving around. All of these podcasts are available on Fans First Sports Network, and make sure you check them out. As for me, our special guest, B Dirt, and my boy Andy P, we'll holler at you guys next week, and have a great week 0 of college football.